Academica Media. From Academica Media Studios in Miami, Florida, it's Big Ideas in Education, a weekly recap of inspiration and innovation in your schools.
Hello, education lovers, and welcome to Big Ideas in Education. Super excited to have you here. I'm Ryan Kairalla from Doral College, joined by Dr. Sarah Boulos from Somerset Academy Schools. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, Ryan. Hello, everyone.
Oh, excited for the stories this week. Let's make them happen. What do you have for us?
A group of high school students participating in an International Baccalaureate Spanish course at West Ottawa High School have been partnering with an unlikely group to improve their language fluency. Kindergartners.
Yeah, I like this.
Yeah. The students have been participating in a mentorship program with a group of kindergartners at Great Lakes Elementary, just a football field away from them. The partnership has been beneficial for both age groups, says West Ottawa High School International Baccalaureate teacher Melody Holmes. It's good for the high school students to see the younger kids' enthusiasm for learning, Holmes said. They're not just conjugating verbs and memorizing vocabulary. They're able to use Spanish with speakers in the young kinders class. They're given opportunities to use language skills and learning outside of the classroom and set them up for success. We're also helping younger students with language acquisition in English and Spanish. It's a great way to work together, connect communities, get perspective. Holmes said the partnership is in line with the overall goals of the International Baccalaureate program, in addition to providing an enhanced learning experience. It fits in with the International Baccalaureate theme of sharing the world around us and learning from experiences, she said. With the IB program on our end, it's giving students an opportunity to invest time and energy into others. In addition to this just being an absolutely adorable story, I think it highlights some really cool things that are maybe not talked often enough about with our high school learners. Engaging with the material in a way that helps them to see relevance is always great, and using relationships in a different way to strengthen that learning. I really love this story, as you can imagine. Getting kids together is really cool, and I think that it's something that we can absolutely learn from and replicate in a lot of places.
Do you know what this reminds me of, Sarah? We've heard versions of this story in the past, and I think you might have even brought a couple of stories like this on previous episodes of the show, but not in the foreign language context, but in the literacy context.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, having older grade students, perhaps even ones who are a couple grade levels behind in reading, read to younger students as a way to build their confidence and to interact with more remedial material to boost their literacy capabilities.
And
if
confidence.
It works in the literacy and the confidence, right?
Yeah.
And so if it works in literacy context, I mean, foreign language seems like a great context as well.
Yeah, helping with language fluency is great. I also love that they're working with native Spanish speakers at really young ages because it's helping the kindergartners' confidence as well, right? So imagine you have a young child who has limited English proficiency coming in and they're, intimidated, I'm sure, and they look up to these older kids and then the kids are helping them. I mean, this is I see only positives to this entire relationship, but you're absolutely right. I have seen this happen a lot with literacy. I've done it myself with students. I've done mentorship programs like this with older students, and regardless of their language fluency or their literacy levels, there are only positive results for both groups. It's amazing what it can do, and I think it speaks to how social learning is, right? Learning is such a social construct and it's such a social activity. It happens through the relationships we have with others. So using this mentorship relationship and having students work with each other in this way, it breaks down the barriers of, being intimidated or nervous because you don't know something. It helps them to feel socially more connected, academically more connected, and it's improving their language skills all around.
Learning can so often be a check your ego at the door experience. Oftentimes when you're engaging material for the first time, it can be in the wrong setting, often damaging to one's self-concept. And so what I love about situations like these is what is more ego boosting than being able to mentor somebody younger than you, to share your knowledge with them and to build that relationship with like the equivalent of a little brother or a little sister. I mean, what an attractive way to engage students in learning. And it does, to me, strengthen the argument for more multi-grade schools, more K-12 campuses where the elementary school, as your story indicates, just a football field away from the high school, so that you can create more of these really valuable learning opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really interesting point that when we have kids that are geographically closer together, we have more opportunities for this. I also think that, international baccalaureate or IB programs, I don't know that we've talked too much about them on the show, but it's really interesting that they are working to, they're really big into experiential learning, which I wasn't super familiar with, if I'm being honest. It's not something I've had a lot of experience with. And about sharing the world around us and all of these things that they're talking about in the article seems like such a really great connection point, especially right now when we're talking about students who may feel very disconnected, right? Especially in the age of COVID and the pandemic. We have a lot of lost connections and a lot of lost relationships and a lot of students looking for that sense of belonging and connection. So I really think that utilizing these strands of the International Baccalaureate philosophy.
Yeah, I was about to say philosophy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you need to have a special IB program to be able to embrace that and to use it in your campus. Ryan, what did you want to share with us?
Well, so we talked about an educational intervention that in your case goes all the way down to the kindergarten level. So let's take it all the way up to college now.
All right.
So the College Board announced on January 25th that it will be converting the SAT from the pencil and paper test that you and I remember to a fully digital one. And this will start in 2023 for international students and 2024 for students in the United States. As reported by EdSurge, the exam, which will now be completed on students' own devices while they're in secure testing sites, has been shortened from 3 hours to 2 and will feature shorter reading passages. The exam shift to digital comes as a growing number of colleges and universities have made the SAT optional for admission, and proponents say that the format change will make the exam more approachable and less stressful for test takers. Others are more critical of the move, saying that the shift to digital does not create significant value and does not address the significant equity concerns that they allege still exist for the test. Echoing that sentiment, Bob Schaefer of Fair Test said, quote, "Shifting an unnecessary, biased, coachable, and poorly predictive multiple-choice exam that few schools currently require from pencil and paper delivery to an electronic format does not magically transform it into a more accurate, fair, or valid tool for assessing college readiness." And this is continuing a narrative that we've built on this own show. We've had admissions representatives from college come and talk to us about some of the reasons why they've made the SAT, which was, at least in our generation, a staple of the college admissions process, now an optional assessment. And this seems to kind of continue that journey for the test, and maybe this is their attempt to try to make it more technologically relevant and hopefully make it more equitable. Although I do understand the argument that just because you put something on a laptop doesn't make it more equitable necessarily.
And not just that, I mean, if I heard you correctly, it said the students would be using their own devices, right? So
Yeah.
immediately, I think, one, how reliable are the students' devices coming in? Two, I think, and for anybody listening who maybe has never worked at a school who is an SAT testing site, you have to do certain things to make sure that you're a valid testing site, paper and pencil, right? So I'm talking about the old school way that we've always been doing it and will continue to do for the next year or so at least. But you have to make sure that you have the desks a certain amount apart. You have to have the materials ready. I mean, you're passing out the pencils and the paper and it's not that complicated, but there are regulations that go into it. I can only imagine what assumptions they are making on schools and school districts and all of these different bodies, network assumptions that are being made, like how many students can they handle on their network, how many Wi-Fi. I mean, there's a lot of different, I'm just thinking of like a local test that we do in the state of Florida, like the FSA, We have to have field tests that go out in the fall at the school sites to make sure that the networks are functioning properly. And that's when we're using school-based devices with the special programs on it and the platform, the testing platform. There's so much testing that goes into it. And that's for one time a year. SAT happens every month or so. So, I mean, I have a lot of questions here for the College Board, and I feel like they're making a lot of assumptions about what schools are able to handle with an unpredictable group of students that come in, because it's not even your own students that come in on those Saturdays to take the SAT.
Yeah.
You have kids from just anywhere in that area who decide to go to your site. So I don't know. I'm not trying to sound pessimistic, but I do have a lot of questions.
To your point, Sarah, we've spoken a lot on this show about the pandemic accelerating this digital divide, right? As we made technology more a part of the education process by virtue of students more having to learn from home more, it
Right.
has identified and oftentimes accentuated
Correct.
technological gaps that exist between richer and poorer students.
Absolutely.
And so if the SAT is switching into a digital format, it could identify and accentuate those same gaps in the standardized testing format. And for an exam that, I mean, the argument always for SATs, right, is it's supposed to be the great equalizer, right? It doesn't care how rich you are. It doesn't care how poor you are. It doesn't care if you went to a good school or a less regarded school. Everybody's taking the same test and everybody is subject to the same standards. But
which we already know is a problem.
which we already know is is a specious argument, to say the least. To Bob Schaefer's points about the exam being coachable and biased, and
Correct.
all absolutely fair points. But by introducing technology and digitizing this exam, it brings an element into it that the past few months of this pandemic has shown can create class disparities and everything else. And I get where people are saying where this almost seems like a solution in search of a problem. Like nobody was pounding the table demanding this.
The SAT is causing too many problems. We don't have enough number 2 pencils. Like that wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could see how people would get upset by this. But to me, I think the broader question is still going to remain about the SAT's role going forward in the college admissions process. And if we remove the SAT completely, what positives does that create for students of lower socioeconomic status, and what solutions does it create? Because I think there are, perhaps not a sizable contingent, but certainly some students out there who say, look, I am at a school that doesn't have a lot of AP courses because of the resources we have. It doesn't have a lot of dual enrollment opportunities for me. And so the SAT is my way to show admissions folks that I have the skills required to excel in higher education. And by diminishing the SAT's relevance going forward, am I losing those opportunities to prove myself and rise above my circumstances?
Yeah, and I wonder, and maybe the article touches on this, maybe not, but I wonder what barriers does the College Board believe they are eliminating by going digital? What do they believe they are accomplishing by making this move? And I mean that not as a cynic, I mean that genuinely. Is there something that maybe I've got some blinders on? Are students saying, I would be able to take the SAT, it would facilitate my ability to do this if I could just bring my cell phone and do it myself? Or, when we say bring your own device, are we saying students need to bring in, are there certain hardware requirements that I think you were alluding to might present a barrier for some students who don't have those things, or who maybe are not able to borrow it from the library or from their campus to bring with them on the day of the testing? So I think this brings a lot of questions. I don't think that in and of itself saying we're going digital is a horrible thing, but are we making sure that we're challenging our own assumptions about what students have, what schools are able to do, and seeing what barriers we're eliminating versus barriers we're bringing up for students and for schools?
Love to hear the listener's perspective on this. especially those of you who are in high schools who maybe have to administer the SAT, who are looking at these requirements and have some questions and have some thoughts. Be sure to tweet at us at Academica Media with the hashtag Big Ideas in Education and let us know what you think of our 2 pretty cool stories this week. Sarah, always a pleasure having you here.
Same, Ryan. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.